Hey everybody, I'm Scott Weichel. You're listening to My Kind of Country right here on MKOC Radio, celebrating 4th anniversary of bringing you real country music the way it should be. My guest tonight is an outstanding singer, songwriter, and musician. Not only that, he's our very own host of Sunday Country Classics. He's just released his first CD, and tonight we're going to visit and present the songs to you. I have such respect for his music, and I consider him one of my closest friends and a musical soulmate. And it's my honor to welcome Brad Petersen to My Kind of Country. Brad, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm great, Scott. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thanks for taking time to be on the show. I've been looking forward to this album for a long time, and it was really nice to share in the process of the recording, while you're recording it and sending me demo tracks and things like that. It was really cool to watch the whole, progress of the album as it came into realization.
Yeah, I want to tell you, it's been about a year in the making, and I really appreciate you being kind of giving me a lot of reflection on this album. As you just said, I was sending you a lot of the tracks as we were going through, just because I have a lot of respect for, your opinion in country music and music in general, and we've become such good friends that I knew that I could get honest response from you too as well. So it's been a lot of fun and a lot of work, but it's finally here.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, and a lot of people don't realize what goes into an album. I mean, there is so much planning and rehearsing, and just you pick everything apart, and you have to really make sure that what you're putting out there for your final product is just as close to exact as what you can get it, and it's definitely mind blowing. But once it's done, it's very fulfilling, and I'm sure that you're extremely happy to have it in your hands now.
Yeah, I actually have a copy in my hand, and I've been mailing out copies. People have been ordering copies on the website, so that's great. And so it's a lot of fun just going through this whole process. I never realized what it took to release an album or a CD, in the proper way, and getting ISRC codes, getting all of that stuff in order, and all the credits and everything else, and then doing cover songs also. Getting the licensing and paying for that. It's all a long process, but I think we did it right, and so I'm happy with that, and it's something I can live with at the very least.
That's great. And the website, folks, you can go get Brad's new album. It is bradpetersenmusic.com, and of course you can find that on our Facebook page. And just get a hold of us, man. We'll make sure you get a copy. It's one you need to have. So, Brad, you are celebrating your first anniversary with Sunday Country Classics on MKOCRadio.com. It's coming up here in June. Been a year already.
Yeah, it's been a year. I can't believe how quick it's gone by, but it sure is a lot of fun, and I hope our listeners are able to tune in. We changed the time schedule from 6 p.m. Pacific time out here to 5 p.m. Recently, and I think that'll be better for the people back east who want to listen in. Too, so it's not so late. But I sure have a great time doing it, and I get to play these songs that we both know and love so much, and I love throwing in, the album tracks and deep cuts and stuff as well, too. So I'm really proud to be a part of your station, Scott.
Oh, I'm very proud to have you. We've got a lot of great DJs, and you also host your own show on KZFR out there in Chico, too.
Yeah, I do a show called Studio 416. It's on Saturday afternoons on kzfr.org. You can listen online at kzfr.org. And it's a show called Studio 416, and we have a lot of fun. I bring in live guests, and I interview them, just kind of like what you do with your show. And I set them up to play live in the studio, or to bring in, if they have a new album release they want to do, and we'll play their music. Sure. And we've had a lot of great guests on over the years.
Well, that's fantastic. And I always enjoy it. You've got some great, the nice thing about you is that you're out there and you get a lot more musicians that are actually able to come live to the studio. Up here in Michigan, we don't get as much of that, so it's really cool when you get to sit there and talk to them face to face.
Yeah, I think that would be great for you too in the future. It'd be a lot of fun to have some of the artists you interview actually come by the house and do sit-down interviews with you, or into your studio.
Yeah.
I know that you'd love that, but you get a lot of great artists that come up that way that I don't get to see come out here very often, like Mo Bandy and Gene Watson and all of those great artists. And so that's kind of cool, I think, for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And every once in a while we get somebody here, but it's still fun to be able to talk to them on the phone either way, you know. So, Brad, I want to
Yeah.
ask you about. Tell me a little bit about your family and your background and the whole music thing, and kind of how you got to where you are as far as with your music these days.
Well, it started. I've grown up all of my life hearing stories about my great grandfather, Grover Blaylock, and he was a champion fiddle player out here in California. I believe from '49 to '51. You know, and so I have I saw an old poster that we have in the family of him, and when he won one of his awards, and newspaper clippings and stuff. And they came out from Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl era, and he had 10 kids, and the oldest was my grandmother, and so all of them played an instrument. And so when they came to California and they worked in the labor camps out in Winters, California, they all kind of settled in and they got into the whole music scene and all of that. And so that there was just always country music in my life at all of the family reunions as a kid growing up, right down to my aunts and uncles and my Uncle Dale, and then, of course, my Uncle Billy, who all of my life I'd heard his claim to fame was that he got to play with Freddie Hart, you know, and I don't know how many shows he ever did with him, but he was in his band for a short time, I believe.
Yep.
And so that was my connection to Freddie Hart, and that's why I love his music so much, too, as well. And so it's been a cool thing. The first time I ever played in front of an audience, I was a young teenager, and it was at one of our family reunions. And our family reunions were so big, they'd come out from Oklahoma and everywhere, and we'd have them out here in California. And they were so big that usually they had to rent a stage or rent a hall and set up equipment and a PA and all that, because so many of them played. And so it was always a lot of fun to sit there and just be around all of that. And so, that's was some of my earliest influences with country music. And so when I play now today, I think of those times a lot when we're up there playing, you know.
Yeah.
And so the generation that came before me, and that's why I wanted to honor them on this CD with the pictures of the, you know, when you open up this gatefold album and it's got the pictures of all of my relatives from previous generations. That's what I wanted to do with that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The album, the pictures are great on here, and the album, folks, is, by the way, is called Second Chances. And Brad, how it had to be a monumental task figuring out the songs that you wanted to put on this CD. How in the world did you narrow it down?
Well, it started out, my friend Tom Probosco, who has a studio here in Chico, and it's Studio Palmetto is the name of it. And he's recorded so many people in this area, and helped them with these projects. And it was such an honor for him to tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I'd like to have you come to my studio and let's record a couple of songs and see what happens." And so that's how that all started.
Wow.
And so the main thing he wanted from me, when we got into this whole thing, is that he said, "I'd love to do this, but of course, I started thinking about all these great songs that I know and love that I grew up with that I wanted to do as cover songs and honor some of my favorite artists." And he said, "That's all good too." He said, "But I want you to do some originals. I would love that if you could do some originals." And so that's how it started. And so we started with Second Chances, a song I wrote, I think around 2001 or so. And it's been hanging around for a while. I recorded it with a female singer back then, 2002, and it sounded pretty good, but I always kind of heard her voice in the song. So I kind of thought of it more as a woman's song, but it is a love song, and that was a song that I wrote. And so we kind of turned it around and made it my own with my voice. Even though I wrote it, I had always connected it with Angie, the girl that sang it years ago. And so I kind of had to find my own way with my own song again. And so we came up with a good arrangement for that, and we did that. And I figured I would like to name the album Second Chances, just because I love the whole idea of having second chances, in our lives. And I believe my life has been a series of second chances, and I'm very grateful for that.
As well you should be. And the other song you wrote on here is called Better Hands. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, Better Hands. So I grew up with a guy in my neighborhood, a bunch of folks that, we all grew up together in the same neighborhood. And his name was Jeff, and we'd known each other since we were in our young teen years, and his mother was, one of our neighborhood moms that we all knew and loved. And so I grew up with Jeff, and I guess we were probably in our 30s when this happened, but he was in a terrible car accident, and he died in a car accident. And she had called me, his mother called me, and to tell me about it. She was really upset, of course, as she should be. And when she gave me the news that he had passed away, one of the things that was a common thread in our conversation is she was saying that she felt that he was in better hands now. And she said, I know he's in better hands. And I said, yes, he's in better hands now. And in that conversation, she asked if I would sing or play some music at his service when the time came for that. And I said, well, I would do the best I could. I didn't know what I could do, but, I wanted to do that for her. And so we hung up the phone. As the hours went on and days went on, I just kept hearing that in my head about her describing that she thought that he was in better hands now. And so that's how the song started. And I wanted to write a song not only for him but for her, a comforting song to his mother. And so that's how that song came about. And so originally that was for my friend Jeff and his mother. And
Wow.
So I played that at his service. It wasn't easy.
Oh, yeah.
And so that song's been around for a while, too. It's been around for a long time. And so we worked up a great arrangement on that. Phil Johnson, a friend of mine here in town who plays beautiful mandolin, he came in on that one. And I'm telling you, he took that song to the next level. I love what he did with that opening mandolin.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That he came up with, and he kind of helped create a melody for that song that had never been there before.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so I think the song's kind of universal. I think a lot of people could relate to that if you've lost a loved one or anything. And so we decided to put that one on there.
Well, that's great. Let's take a little break. I want to play Better Hands, and I want to play Second Chances for the folks. And the album is called Second Chances. You can go to bradpetersenmusic.com and order your very own copy today. And we're going to play those two songs and come back and talk to Brad some more. And we got a lot to talk about, and we're going to get into Merle Haggard next. So stay with us, folks. My Kind of Country continues with Brad Petersen. Here's a couple songs from Second Chances.
Lived his life to the limit, running with the wind. He was a son, a friend, and a brother to the very end. His time with us wasn't long enough, but who am I to say? I guess God needs him more than we do, so I try to see it this way. He's in better hands than you and I. He's in better hands. Mama, please don't cry. He's found the path to glory. He's knocked on heaven's door. He's found eternal freedom now. Who could ask for more? I guess we'll always miss him. That much is true. But think of all the times you had when he was here with you. And know that he is in a place where I hope to be when my time finally comes for them to come and carry me. He's in better hands than you and I. He's in better hands. Mama, please don't cry. He's found the path to glory. He's knocked on heaven's door. He's found eternal freedom now. Who could found eternal freedom now. Who could ask for more? He's found eternal freedom now. Who could ask for more? Who could ask for more? They say that lightning don't strike twice. Well, maybe that's good advice. But who'd have thought she'd be standing next to me? I'm so glad I found you again, my dear sweet long-lost friend. Now we can spend our lifetime chasing dreams, 'cause God gives people who dream second chances, and love the strong wasn't meant to live on its own. Now we can fly and learn brand new dances, 'cause God gives love like ours second chances. There was a time when we were apart, then you came back into my heart and gave me brand new reasons to live. I'm so glad I found you again, my dear sweet long-lost friend. Now we can spend our lifetime chasing dreams, 'cause God gives people who dream second chances, and love the strong wasn't meant to live on its own. Now we can fly and learn brand new dances, 'cause God gives love like ours second chances. God gives people who dream second chances, and love the strong wasn't meant to live on its own. Now we can fly and learn brand new dances, 'cause God gives love like ours second chances, second chances, second chances.
All right, that's brand new music from Brad Petersen on his album Second Chances. That's Better Hands and the title track Second Chances. And I've got Brad here with us tonight talking about this great album and just talking about music. And one of the things that, Brad, you and I have had so many conversations over the last couple years, in-depth conversations, and that's one of the things I love about you. And you feel about Merle Haggard the same way I do. It's the kind of the soundtrack of your life. And tell me a little bit about your whole life and relationship with Merle Haggard and his family.
Well, first of all, I think he and to affirm what you just said, and we both agree, there are many, many great country singers out there that we both know and love so much. But personally, it's just, if I had to choose one, it would have to be Merle. I think he was the greatest country music singer, songwriter, entertainer his whole life. I just loved his music so much, and just like you, it's been a soundtrack of my whole life. We talk about even sections of his years, you and I, like the Capitol years, the MCA years, the Epic years, and that's why I love talking to you about those things. And even those label years even represent sections of our lives growing up and listening to them. I think you would agree, right?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it.
And so, yeah, the first time I ever had any connection with Merle's family, my cousin Marty, we're the same age. He lives in Redding, California, and he grew up there. And he ended up going to the same high school as Merle Haggard's son, Noel Haggard. And so they knew each other in their teen years. And so when I would go up to visit them for the summers, we'd have a great time because it's up there by Lake Shasta, and it's really beautiful. And I loved going up to stay with my cousins during the summer, when I was a kid, 14, 15, 16 years old. There were times I would take a Greyhound bus. My parents would get me a ticket, and I'd ride the Greyhound bus up there and stay with them for a few weeks during the summer. And it was on one of those trips that I met Noel Haggard, and I think at the time I might have been 16. He was probably 17, and he came over to my cousin's house because they were buddies and they hung out. And it was really neat to get to meet him. I was kind of embarrassed when I first met him because I had on one of his dad's T-shirts, and I had no idea I was going to even meet him. And I don't know why I remember that, but I thought that was kind of funny. It's like, oh man, here I am wearing a Merle Haggard tour shirt, and I'm meeting a son. This is kind of cheesy, but it was great. And so that started our friendship over all of these years, and it continues today. So my main connection with the Haggard family would probably be Noel and his sisters, Dana and Kelly. That's when my friendship began with all of them. And this was in the early 80s. And it was a time when Merle, I believe, his career was on top of the world at that time.
Oh, yeah.
I think you would agree, 81, 82, 83. So we would go up to his house up there in Palo Cedro, and he had this big, beautiful house. And I remember the first time I walked in there with my cousin, we went over to go see Noel. He said, hey, why don't you guys come over? And his dad was out on the road, but the first time I'd gone into his house, I couldn't believe it. I walked down the hallway, and there's all these gold records hanging on the wall. And it's all those records that you and I know and love. And I remember, I believe it might have been 83, but I remember seeing the Poncho and Lefty, the gold album on the wall too as well. And there are pictures of him with Ronald Reagan, and Dolly Parton and all of these things in their big music room. And so that was my first connection. And as you know, I loved Merle long before that. And so for a 16-year-old kid to experience that, and then I met Biff Adam that same weekend because he and his wife Betty at the time lived in a house on the property there, and Biff would kind of look out, for the property, And so he was like an uncle to all the Haggard kids, and he still remains to be this day, I think.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So,
and the first time I met Merle would have been around the time. Do you remember the album Chill Factor? Mm-hmm. The album wasn't out yet, but it was very close. And I remember Noel giving me a cassette tape with some of those songs on it on that trip there. And Merle had been out on the road, and I had been at their house for the weekend. It was just us kids there. At the time, it was Kelly and Noel and I. And before I left, I was going to leave. By this time, I had a car. I was 18 or 19 years old, and I was getting ready to head back home to Monterey, and it was a Sunday. And I'm out there with them on the front porch, and Merle comes pulling up in his bus, driving his own bus. And I thought, wow, this is, that was the first time I'd ever met Merle, and it was a pretty grand entrance. He pulled up that driveway on that big bus, and I was just, we were all packed up, and I was ready to leave. And it was something else. He steps off that bus, and he walks up to the front porch, and Noel says, hey, I want you to meet my friend Brad. And that was my first meeting with Merle. And as you can imagine, by that time I was 18 or 19, and it was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, not intimidating at all when he rolls up in the tour bus, right?
No, I thought, why didn't I leave here 10 minutes earlier? But on the other hand, I thought, I can't wait to see what, when he comes off this bus. This is Merle Haggard, and so I tried to maintain my composure. I hope I did. I don't know. So that was my first meeting with Merle, or the first time that, I'd ever got to see him and meet him in person. I had seen him at shows, multiple times before that. I'd gone to his concerts and everything, as you can imagine. So.
Well, and over the years, you've gotten to know not only Merle, but most of the people that worked for him and with him, and you're on a first name basis. You become friends, and I think that's a measure of the type of person that you are, because it's very hard for entertainers to welcome people into their circle, and you've always been a very
they had a tight circle, didn't they, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely, and you're a very genuine person and a very trustworthy person, and I know that they feel the same way about you. You were at Merle's funeral, for crying out loud. That says a lot right there.
Yeah, if you fast forward that, all those years later, being on that same piece of property for his service, it was a surreal experience. And I was there the night before he died as well, up at the house. Noel had flown out. He called me the night before, and he said, I don't think Dad's going to be with us much longer. I'm flying out there. He said, I'd love you to come up and be with me for a while. I need a friend or whatever. So, I happened to be there the night before. I didn't stay there, but I drove up there and just kind of was with them, while he was on his bus.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot that happened between those years, though, too. There was it was the same for you too, Scott. The family would always welcome me to any of those shows, and they treated us very well. If I brought a family member, or whenever Julie would come with me, or my mother or my daughter, they would treat us very well. But you kind of learn to know where your place is when you're at those shows and they're doing sound checks and all of that stuff. You just kind of try to stay out of the way. But they've always been very nice, all of them. Biff, Norm, Scott, Doug, and you've had the same experiences, right, Scott?
Oh, absolutely. We always had so many great visits and just the best people, and they all like to just visit with people, and we would talk. Merle and I would talk about music sometimes, but other times we talk about. He was very well versed in so many different things, very knowledgeable about history, and we talked about all kinds of different things, and it was always a very unique conversation. You never knew where it was going to go with Merle Haggard, but very enjoyable. Every time I was blessed to be around him, and I'm sure it was the same way for you.
There are a lot of stories I could tell you, just like we both could take an hour just talking about.
Yeah, I know it.
But I also went to Janessa's wedding, his daughter Janessa's wedding, 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was, out there. And the cool thing about that was that Marty Stewart and the Superlatives were all there, and they were at the wedding because Marty Stewart is her godfather, I believe. And so for the reception, we got to sit out there and have a nice dinner to celebrate their wedding, and Marty Stewart was the house band for that reception. And that was quite a night. And then, of course, Merle got up and he did a bunch of songs with Marty Stewart, and I thought, how great is this, And
yeah,
so there's so many great moments I've gotten to share. One of the last long visits I got to have was at Merle's house with Noel, and Merle had a CD that he had brought in, a blank CD, and he put it in the stereo, and we sat and listened to, I don't quite remember, maybe 8 songs, maybe 10, and we just, all three of us just sat there, Noel and Merle and I, and he played these songs for us that he had recorded, and I believe it was at Buddy Cannon's place, I'm not sure.
Wow.
And some beautiful recordings.
Wow.
And it was something else to be able to sit there with him and listen to those songs for the first time.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, you've got a couple songs. Well, there's these, neither one of these songs were written by Merle, but everybody associates them with Merle. And it's The Way I Am and If I Could Only Fly. And you had some pretty important folks that were close to Merle that played on this album too. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was a real honor and a pleasure. We both call Scott Weichel, and we both call Scott Joss and Doug Colosio are friends, and they're good friends to me as well. And so it was really great. So Scott had mentioned to me a long time ago, if you ever record anything, I'd be happy to play on it, And so he really meant it. And so when I started doing these songs, one of the songs that I wanted to take on, which I was, as you know, it was very important to me to try to do it my own way, but also to honor the song, and that's If I Could Only Fly by Blaze Foley, which the first time I ever heard it was on a Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson album, Seashores of Old Mexico, and that's the first time I had really been exposed to the song, and that was back in '87, I think, right, Scott?
Yep.
On that album. And so I love the song. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to my mother and people in my life, and we've done it in our live shows a lot. And so I asked Scott if he would play on it, and so he came in the studio, and we had the scratch demo ready for it and everything, and he came in and he played some beautiful fiddle on that song. And he laid down a few tracks for that, and he said, let's see what we can use. And in the middle of this conversation, he had kind of been singing the song, trying to get into it, to do his fiddle parts, to himself. And Scott has sang that on my radio show before when he was a guest, and I just love the way he does that song. I love his version, as well as Merle's. And so I don't know how it came up, but somehow I got Scott to sing the second verse of that song, and so that's Scott Joss on the second half of that song.
That's cool.
And it's just beautiful. I think he really did a beautiful job on that. So we got him to lay down a second verse on that, and I couldn't believe it, and it just came out really beautiful. So I'm really proud of that. And as you know, in our conversations recording this album, I was kind of nervous about doing that song because I have so much, I revere that song so much,
Yeah,
and to have Doug Colosio and Scott Joss come in and play on that. Doug played piano.
Yeah.
To
That
have
is
those
really
two
cool.
guys come in, they played it with Merle every night out on the road, and to have them come in and hear my version, I almost wanted to leave the room because I was afraid of what they would think, but they both were supportive of it.
Oh, it's a beautiful
They
song.
seemed to be happy with the way it came out as well, so that means a lot to me.
Yeah, you did a beautiful job on it, and I know that was a song that was very dear to Merle too, because he recorded it twice and he performed it on just about every live show, especially in the last years, and I know that it was a very meaningful song for him too.
He performed that at his very last show at the Paramount Theater in Oakland, and I was there at that last show. We didn't all know, of course, for sure that would be his very last show, but of course, we all knew he was sick, and it was the final show of that tour. Yeah. And he sang it that night as beautiful as he'd ever sang it.
Yeah, I believe it. And The Way I Am, I know that this is your favorite Merle Haggard album, and of course, you had to include this song on the album. I totally get that.
Well, I'll tell you, the our producer Tom Probosco, who produced this album, he was at one of our, we'd been playing little shows in between recording all of this stuff, and we did a show. And he came out, and he comes to our shows once in a while, and we did that song, and he said, "What was that last song you played?" He said, "Man, I like that song." And I said, "Oh, that's The Way I Am." And he said, "Man," he said, "I really love that." He goes, "Why don't we add another track? We only had 5 songs. It was gonna be an EP, as it is now." And that was kind of the last song we added onto it. He said, "Could you guys get together and could we come in the studio and you guys just cut a live track of it?" And so I said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that." And so he was the one. I want to thank Tom because he liked it so much he thought we should record it and add it to the album.
Nice.
So we went in and we recorded most of that live. The harmony vocals were put in later by Leanne Cooley. And that track was pretty much just about all live. Maybe Alan threw his guitar solo over the top of that, but we were all still in the room. It was all in that one session.
Wow.
And that was a tough one. That's a tough one for me to hit that high, in the chorus, But yeah. I love the song. It was one of the first songs that I remember my uncle playing when he'd come over to the house when that album first came out, my Uncle Dale. And I used to love the way he did it, and I just love that album, so I'm glad we did that.
That's cool. Well, let's take another break here, and I want to play those two songs for you, and we'll come back and talk to Brad some more, The Way I Am, and If I Could Only Fly with Scott Joss adding the last part of the vocals on the song, and absolutely beautiful. I've played this on the show before for folks, but you got to hear it again tonight. So, Brad, stay with us. We're going to come back and talk some more about this great album. It's called Second Chances. You can go to bradpetersenmusic.com and order your very own copy, and Brad will be back with us in just a couple minutes.
Wish I were down on some blue bayou with the bamboo cane stuck in the sand, but the road I'm on don't seem to go there, so I'll just dream, keep on being the way I am. Wish I enjoy what makes my living, did what I do with a willing hand, as some would run, but that ain't like me, so I'll just dream, keep on being the way I am. The way I am don't fit my shackles. The way I am, reality, I can almost see that barber dancing, so I'll just dream, keep on being the way I am. The way I am don't fit my shackles. The way I am, reality, I can almost see that barber dancing, but I'll just dream, keep on being the way I am. I'll just dream, keep on being the way I am. I almost felt you touching me just now. I wish I knew which way to turn and go. I feel so good, and then I feel so bad. I wonder what I ought to do. If I could only fly, if I could only fly, I'd bid this place goodbye to come and be with you. But I can hardly stand, and I've got nowhere to run. Another sinking sun, and one more lonely night. The wind keeps blowing somewhere every day. Tell me things will get better somewhere up the way. Just dismal thinking on a dismal day. And sad songs for us to bear.
Sometimes I write happy songs, then some little thing goes wrong, and I wish they all could make you smile. I'm coming home soon and I want to stay. Maybe we can somehow get away. And I wish you could come with me when I go again. If I could only fly, if I could only fly, I'd bid this place goodbye to come and be with you. But I can hardly stand, and I've got no place to run. Just another sinking sun, and one more lonely night. If I could only fly, if you could only fly, if we could only fly, there'd be no more lonely nights.
All right, that is Brad Petersen from his new album Second Chances. That is The Way I Am, and If I Could Only Fly with Scott Joss. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful version of that song, Brad. I am so impressed with that. I just every time I hear it, it just gives me chills, man. You guys just knocked it out of the park.
Thank you so much, Scott. That means a lot coming from you, my friend.
Well, folks that obviously have gathered that Brad and I have been friends for a while, and we kind of met. I guess we kind of met in the world of Facebook, and then we started talking on the phone. And Brad and his girlfriend Julie did something very special. They came last year. They flew in from California all the way to Pigeon Forge to come and meet me and see me get the award for the Radio Station of the Year. and we got to hang out with Freddie Hart, and we had such a wonderful time. And we went to Nashville, and I want to thank you again for that, and it just kind of cemented our friendship, and it was so great to spend that time with you, and what a great time we had.
Well, it was so great, Scott. I feel the same way. We both feel the same way. And it was so nice to get to meet you in person, and Sarah and your lovely daughter, Merritt. And we love them as much as we love you. And I think a lot of people, a lot of artists that you become friends with and interview, a lot of country singers in the industry also love Sarah and Merritt. And so we love your family as much as we love you. And it was so great. It was a lot of fun to get to come out there. And it was because of you I got to meet Freddie Hart, and we got to spend some time with Freddie as well. What a great gentleman.
He sure is.
And he's got such a great history in country music, and to get to be around David Frizzell and his wife Jo, and Lacey was there, Lacey J. Dalton. And we got to open for her a couple of years ago at a show out here, and I've gotten to know her a little bit. And just everybody was just top-notch there. And I have to say, to the listeners that listen to you, Scott, you were there to get your award, right, for Best Radio Show, and you were not able to get up there on stage to receive it because you were busy trying to work the board. Weren't you recording the show?
Yeah, we were trying to get on the air is what we were trying to do.
You were trying to get it on the air, and like the consummate professional that you are, you forewent, is that a word? Getting your award and getting up there and getting your moment in the sun to receive the award because you were trying to get the show on the air. And I told your wife, Sarah, that night, I said, that's why he's getting this award, because of that stuff, And so that just was a great testament to you and your commitment to excellence in radio.
Well, to be honest with you, it made me mad because I wanted everybody in the world that listens to the radio show to be able to hear me get my award, and I was mad because I couldn't get on the air, man. That's the real truth. You want to get right down to it.
I'm building the story, don't you, Scott?
That's right, man. I just knocked it right down, didn't I? No, I appreciate that, Brad. The reward for me over the years is, as you know, and as I've told many people, it's the folks you get to meet, and it's the experiences. The awards are nice and everything like that, but it's all about the music, and it's about the wonderful people. I've met some of the greatest people, both entertainers and just regular people, in all facets of music that I've been involved with over the years. And that's the stuff that I will treasure for the rest of my life, and I know you're the same way too.
To be backstage there and to get to be in the same room with David Frizzell, Lacey J. Dalton, Freddie Hart, Erlene Mandrell, Sylvia, and the list goes on. It was really something else that night. It was such a beautiful thing, and I'm sure it was a great night for them to be recognized, and for you to be recognized. And, the one thing that country music has brought me, and we both have talked about this, is the great friendships that have stemmed from all of this, from these shows that we've been to and the stuff that we've done involving music. I've got some of the greatest friendships just from country music alone.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, let's talk about Julie. We just absolutely love Julie, and Sarah and her they were like two peas in a pod. And she took a very unique photograph of you that you used for the cover of this album.
Yeah. So every year in San Francisco, they have a thing called the Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival. And it's a 3-day festival in Golden Gate Park. And they have everyone from Emmylou Harris to Steve Earle to so many other great artists. So this one particular year was about a year and a half ago. We went to the Saturday show, and there's a bunch of stages that are spread out on Golden Gate Park. And in one day, I got to see Emmylou Harris, Steve Earle, Jackson Brown, Bobby Bare, Jamie Johnson, and Chris Christopherson, and they're all on different stages. So you're kind of trying to make each show and kind of figure out who you want to see and who you have to forego seeing. And so it was such a great weekend that we both had there. And we stayed at a place down there near Haight-Ashbury, and a nice hotel there. And so the next day we went for a walk up to Haight-Ashbury, and we had lunch and just kind of went to the record stores there, which found some great finds there at Amoeba Records. And we were there near Haight-Ashbury, and she insisted that I go over and stand by the Haight-Ashbury sign and get some pictures of me. So I went across the street, and she took them from across the street. And so she took a whole series of pictures and trying to get one without the cars driving by in front of me and all of that stuff. And I wasn't really up for it, but she said, you got to go do this. Get over there. I want to get some pictures of you. And so we jokingly both said, hey, that could be used for an album cover someday. And that was right before Tom approached me about doing some recordings.
Well, there you go.
And so with all this said and done, it's like, well, we got to use that picture, And so I'm so happy because every step in this album has been by somebody that I know and care about that's been involved in this, right down to Julie taking the cover photo, and so that's why that means a lot to me.
Well, you and I grew up in the days of records when you had a big record cover you could look at and read all the liner notes and all that great stuff. And they, excuse me, they've gotten a little bit smaller nowadays. And now I have bifocals, but I have to, I can still read this stuff.
I do.
But you've got so many great pictures in here, not only of your family, but people that played on the album. And it's that old adage: every picture tells a story. And I love in the credits. And thank you, by the way, for mentioning my name in there. That was a above and beyond honor that I am just in awe that you did that.
We've had a great friendship, and love you and what you do for music. So.
And I love what you said about your mom and about your daughter. And I think that you've got a picture of you and Grace there, and she is such a beautiful young girl, and you've got a family to be proud of there, my friend.
Yes, I had to have a shot of me and Grace in there. She's my daughter. And that's a picture of me and Grace and her dog Mocha. And so I had to, have a picture of my daughter in there. I love her so much, as you can imagine. I know that, what it's like to have a daughter. And so I love Grace, so I wanted to put that on there. And I also wanted to acknowledge my mother and father. And my father passed away about 18 years ago, and I know he would have just loved this. He loved country music, and I know that he would have really loved to have been here for this. But I'm so grateful that my mother is here and to experience this and be alive to get to experience all this.
Amen to that. Your mom's fantastic. We haven't met face to face yet, but I think she's just one of the coolest ladies on the planet.
Yeah, you guys should talk sometime. It would be a long conversation. I get that you guys would both hit it off.
So that's where you get that from, huh?
That's where I get it from. That's where I get all my talking from, that's for sure.
I love that. Well, tell me about the song The Weary Kind.
Oh, The Weary Kind, yes. So that's a song from the film Crazy Heart with Jeff Bridges. And some years ago when that film came out, I'm not sure how many years ago it's been now, maybe 7 years ago or so, maybe 8 years ago. Don't quote me on that, but it's been a little while. That movie came out, and I went and I saw that movie, and it just really hit me. I just love that film for many different reasons, and the character he plays in that film. And one of the things that drove the film is that he's a songwriter, and he's wanting to write like just that one more song. I guess that's what happens to a lot of great artists, right? They want that one last song. They're always searching for that one more song, right? And so they needed a song to drive that film for Jeff Bridges, and they had most of the film, I think, done from what I've read and heard. And they still needed the song to drive the film, and so T-Bone Burnett was the producer of the music for that movie. And at one point, they had contacted Ryan Bingham, the singer-songwriter, and it was a song that Ryan Bingham wrote, and he played that for T-Bone and Jeff Bridges, and they knew that was the song they needed to use, and so that's from that film. And I just love the song. It really floors me every time I hear it. It's just one of those songs that I will love for the rest of my life. And so it took me a while to learn the guitar part, the acoustic guitar part. There's a lot of finger picking and chord changes and stuff, and I'm not the greatest guitar player by any means, so you can trust me on that. But it took a while, and I learned that song, and it was do you ever have those songs that you love so much, they might even be above your
Yep.
coordination, but you try them anyway? Well, that was the one for me.
It's that upper
I wasn't going to
echelon.
quit until I learned that song.
It's the upper echelon of music. I understand that.
Hey, for a guy like me, if it's got more than 3 chords in it, it's going to be some rehearsal time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hear you there. Well, Scott
So
Joss came.
we play that song a lot during our shows for the last 4 years.
Oh, it's a great song, and Scott Joss did some beautiful violin and mandolin work on this too. Man, it's just gorgeous.
You know, Scott put the violin on that the first session, and my good friend Vera Bridges sang harmony, and we had Corey on drums. Anyway, so he had put the violin on that, and that was his one visit over to the house. He had put violin on 3 songs on that session. And he said, if you need anything else, let me know, you know. And we shook hands. Great to see you. He went home that day, and it just kept gnawing at me. I thought, God, that song could use a mandolin. And I didn't want to bother him. And so I thought about it for about a week, and I finally got the nerve to pick up the phone, and I said, Scott, could you do one more thing for me? And he said, yeah, sure. And I said, I'd love it if you could play mandolin also. Put some mandolin on Weary Kind. Would you be willing to do that? And he said, sure. So it turned out that it was last year on July 1st, which just happened to be my birthday. It was on a weekend, and that's when he could show up. So he and his wife, Judy, came out, and he put some mandolin on there, and I thought it was really beautiful. So I'm really glad that I reached out and asked him to come back to the studio one more time.
Absolutely. What a great memory. Nice birthday present, right?
Oh, yeah. By the way, it was a Saturday. It was my birthday. We had to go into the studio, and I had to be in. He showed up, and he put down his parts on that. And then right after that, he said, well, what are you doing for the rest of the day? And I said, well, I have a radio show to do at 1:30. And he had been on the show a few times, so he's no stranger to the radio show I do in Chico. And he said, the wife's out shopping. He said, maybe Judy can meet us there at the station later, and I'll come and join you. So I had a guest that day, Danny Flowers, and Scott just rode with me over to the station, and he was on the show that day. And so that was a great day for me, a great memory.
That's cool.
Last year.
That's cool. Scott is a very kindred soul, and I just think a lot of him. And Doug too. Doug is he's such a goofball, and he's one of the best musicians, and he sure channels the Mark Urie sound when he's playing the Merle Haggard stuff, and they're both so talented, and it's so nice that they work together. And of course, they're now working some shows with Ben and Noel Haggard and with Chris Christopherson too, and I think it's just such a great matchup.
I'm so happy for them, and I don't want to leave Doug out at all in this conversation, because Doug also played piano, and If I Could Only Fly, he played piano on Better Hands, and he came on a separate day that Scott came. They weren't there on the same day, and it was just really beautiful what he put on the album. He also played on Me and Paul, the Willie Nelson song. Doug played piano on that as well, and so I was going to say, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. I've known Doug for a long time. He lives up here in Redding. I live about an hour and 15 minutes away from those guys. So I live down here in Chico. They live up in Redding, and so I get to see them once in a while. And so that's a lot of fun as well, too. We've done other shows where we've kind of crossed paths. And I want to say Doug is a wonderful piano player. And you're right. I loved Mark Urie when he was with Merle. I love those years. But I'm going to tell you, Doug is able to capture that spirit but yet have his own style.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I saw them recently in January when Chris Christopherson came to Chico to play. And it was so nice to see him and Jeff Ingram and Scott Joss play on that stage with Chris, and to see them go on with Chris after losing Merle. I think they all kind of had a moment there over the last year or two where they weren't sure what was going to happen next.
Yeah. And
I think it's so great that Chris and Lisa have brought them into their fold, and I think they bring a lot to Chris's music.
Absolutely. And I know I watched some video on on Chris, and you can just see the joy in his face with having those guys out there on stage, and it looks like they're just having such a good time,
They're the finest people you'll ever meet, just like the Haggards.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, the Christophersons.
Absolutely.
Are wonderful people.
Well, the last song you just mentioned a minute ago, we haven't talked about this one, and this is a song that musicians can identify with. It's called "Me and Paul," and it's a song that Willie wrote basically about being out there on the road with him and his drummer, and going to the hotels and doing all these things. And I think if you're a musician, that this one really hits home, and it's a Willie Nelson classic for sure. You did a great job on it, Brad.
Thank you, Scott. That was another song that. I don't know, maybe I was 13 or 14 when I first really discovered that song. Believe it or not, it was on a Waylon Jennings record, Waylon Live. And then I, in short order, realized that Willie had written it, so I found an album that he had released, an album called Me and Paul. It was the second version, I think, in the early 80s, too. And so Willie has redone that song a couple of times. And I love the song for a 14, 15-year-old kid. It's a pretty romantic song, if you will, to think about what it would be like to be out there on the road and all of that stuff. And so to me, it was a really cool. He painted this great picture of the reality of being out on the road. And so that was the stuff that I dreamed of back when I was a kid. Was, doing that kind of stuff and having that lifestyle, for better or worse. And so we do that song. We've been doing that for a few years, and so I just feel really comfortable doing that song. I love the groove of it. I love the flow. And so to get to have Doug Colosio and my friend Aaron Jaquia played guitar on that, and I thought he did a stellar job. And Jimmy Barnes played drums on that, and my good friend Mike Cook, who's been playing bass. We've been playing music together for the last probably four years or so, and he's always there. And he's a dyed-in-the-wool country player from way back, and so I was so happy to have him on this album as well.
That's great. Well, I know you guys have a lot of fun. You play a lot of dates out around your area out there in California, and it's Brad Petersen and Friends. And folks, again, you can go to bradpetersenmusic.com and check out Brad's music and find out where he's going to be at. If you have a chance to go see him and his band perform, please do. They are, Brad, you're real deal, man, and it's so refreshing and so nice to know somebody and talk to somebody that is, the music isn't just something that you do, it's something that you live.
We're playing tonight, Scott. We're playing tonight in Chico at the Maltese, as a matter of fact, and so I'm looking forward to that tonight. So it's been a great day for me.
Absolutely.
I've got the day off work. I get to do a phone-in interview with you and go play some music tonight, so life is good. And it's all I think about, Scott, most of the time is music, just like you. And so it's the stuff we've always wanted to do. And I think you and I both will always be fans of country music before anything else. And to be able to be in any level of this kind of work is a real blessing for me, and I love it. And I'm sure that you feel the same way.
I certainly do. And it's a, without getting all gushing and everything, it is a blessing to know you and call you my friend. And Brad, I've had such a great time talking with you today, and thank you so much for sharing your music with our listeners. And of course, I want to play these last couple songs that we didn't get to, and that'll get them all on the air. I just absolutely love that. And please pick up the album, Brad Petersen Second Chances. Brad, my friend, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. It's been a blast.
Thank you as well, Scott. I can't believe I've listened to your show for a few years now, and to get to hear all those archived interviews with people like Bill Anderson and Gene Watson and Charlie Pride and David Frizzell and Freddie Hart. It's so cool to be able to be on the other side of the phone with you on this, and I want to thank you so much for your support for this album. And I'll see you soon, and tune in to Sunday Country Classics, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
That's right here on MKOC Radio. Got to get those plugs in there, right? Well, let's let's play the weary kind, and then we'll end up with Me and Paul for everybody. And Brad, thanks again, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much, Scott.
Your heart's on the loose, and you roll them sevens with nothing to lose. and this ain't no place for the weary kind. You called all your shots, shooting 8-ball at the corner truck stop. Somehow this don't feel like home anymore. And this ain't no place for the weary kind. And this ain't no place to lose your mind. And this ain't no place to fall behind. Pick up your crazy heart and give it one more try. Body aches from playing your guitar and sweating out the hate. The days and the nights all feel the same. The whiskey has been a thorn in your side you can't forget. The highway that calls for your name inside. And this ain't no place for the weary kind. And this ain't no place to lose your mind. This ain't no place to fall behind. Pick up your crazy heart and give it one more try. Your lover's warm kiss, it's too damn far from her fingertips. 'Cause you are the man that ruined her world. And your heart's on the loose, and you roll them sevens with nothing to lose. This ain't no place for the weary kind. Well, it's been rough and rocky traveling, but I'm finally standing upright on the ground. After taking several readings, I'm surprised to find my mind still fairly sound. I thought Nashville was the roughest, but I know I've said the same about them all. We received our education in the cities of the nation, me and Paul. Almost busted in Laredo, but for reasons that I'd rather not disclose. But if you're staying in a motel there and leave, just don't leave nothing in your clothes. At the airport in Milwaukee, they refused to let us board the plane at all. They said we looked suspicious, but I believe they like to pick on me and Paul. At a package show in Buffalo, with us and Kitty Wells and Charlie Pride. The show was long and we were sitting there, and we had come to play, not for the ride. And we drank a lot of whiskey, so I don't know if we went on that night at all. But I don't think they even missed us. I guess Buffalo ain't geared for me and Paul. It's been rough and rocky traveling, but I'm finally standing upright on the ground. And after taking several readings, I'm surprised to find my mind still fairly sound. I thought Nashville was the roughest, but I know I've said the same about them all. We received our education in the cities of the nation, me and Paul. We received our education in the cities of the nation, me and Paul.